What then were the major achievements of the United States under the Articles?
Really two. The first was prosecuting and winning the war, which involved supplying an army. It involved making treaties, including the treaty with France, the alliance that really made it possible for the United States to win the war and gain its independence. And the second major achievement of the United States under the Articles of Confederation was the Northwest Ordinance. That is, the agreement by which the Northwest territories, the ones that are currently the Great Lakes states, would be made into territories and eventually could have a path to statehood. The Northwest Ordinance prescribed, for example, the way those territories could be settled, the fact that they would not be open to slavery, and prescribed, in a sense, a path to joining the Union themselves. Those were really the two major accomplishments of the Articles of Confederation.
What were the major weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation?
Depended on your point of view. From certain people's point of view, the Articles of Confederation were just fine. If you were an ordinary farmer in Western Massachusetts or Western Pennsylvania, the last thing you might want would be a strong central government somehow trying to play any role in your life. You might call these people localists. Their lives existed in their local communities. They might know about things that were going on a broader national or international scale from reading the newspapers, from having conversations, but government far away was not the government that they wanted. So for them, the Articles of Confederation, a league of friendship among 13 sovereign states, was perfectly fine. But if you wanted a central government to play more of a role in making sure that, for example, the United States honored its treaties with foreign nations, if you were worried that individual states or even individuals within states could take actions that would violate the United States international treaties, and under the Articles of Confederation, the central government had virtually no ability to regulate what those people were doing. Or if you were somebody in a state who was involved with trade with other states, you might be concerned that those other states would be putting tariffs or taxes or fees on the transportation of your goods from one state to another. Or if you were involved with navigating the Potomac River and Maryland and Virginia were arguing over the rights of navigation on the Potomac, in all of those cases, you would find the Articles of Confederation completely inadequate to address your problems or your concerns.
Did anyone make any attempts to solve those problems?
They tried very hard. They tried in multiple ways. One way was by trying to get amendments passed to the Articles of Confederation. Problem with that was that, according to the Articles of Confederation, any amendment required the agreement of all 13 states, which would never happen. No amendment was ever passed to the Articles of Confederation, never agreed to by all 13 states. Then there were interstate attempts to address the problems. For example, in 1785, representatives of Maryland and Virginia got together at Mount Vernon, George Washington's plantation on the Potomac, to discuss the problems of navigation and the difficulties between Maryland and Virginia. They came up with certain ideas and took those ideas back to the legislatures of Maryland and Virginia, which adopted them. The following year, in 1776, 5 states, 5 of the mid-Atlantic states, sent representatives to Annapolis, Maryland, for similar purposes, to come up with certain kinds of interstate agreements about trade. And that was the convention. The Annapolis Convention was the one that also sent a message to the Continental Congress, or the Congress under the Articles of Confederation, asking that all the states send representatives to a broader conference to be held in Philadelphia the following year, 1787, to consider again amendments to the Articles of Confederation, which brings us to the Constitutional Convention.
Let me ask, didn't Shays Rebellion in some way result in support for actually changing the Articles?
Absolutely so. Shays Rebellion, which was in some ways a debt fight in Western Massachusetts, that is, farmers in Western Massachusetts who resented the debts that they owed to creditors. Many of those creditors were from eastern parts of Massachusetts. Many of them were wealthier, and they were arguing that they shouldn't have to pay their debts. They couldn't afford to pay their debts, and they wanted debts either forgiven or they wanted debts renegotiated. And the government of Massachusetts sent troops to put down this so-called rebellion. But people in Virginia, people as far away as George Washington and James Madison in Virginia, are writing to each other and saying, if people can simply try to overturn their responsibilities like their debts, if state governments don't have the power to put those kinds of rebellions down, what kind of national authority can state governments turn to? Under the Articles of Confederation, virtually none. And so for people like Washington and Madison, there was really a problem of internal dissension, internal self-government that the Articles of Confederation were not helping to solve.